Hello, my name is Pastor Mike Miller. I'm the pastor for a new church called Ministries launching September 15th in Chicago at the National Teachers Academy located at 55 West Cermak. We put together this four-part series as a preview for you to see and experience a little bit about what worship will be like when we launch on the 15th. We hope you enjoy it.
Set me on fire, set me on fire. Take all I have in these hands and multiply. God, all that I am, and find my heart on the altar again. Set me on fire, set me on fire. Here I am, God, arms wide open, pouring out my life, gracefully broken. My heart stands in awe of your name, your mighty love stands strong to the end. You will fulfill your purpose in me. You won't forsake, you will be with me. Here I am, God, arms wide open, pouring out my life, gracefully broken. All to Jesus now, all to Jesus now. I'm holding nothing back, holding nothing back. All to Jesus now, all to Jesus now. I'm holding nothing back, oh, I'm holding nothing back. I surrender, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. Your power at work in me, I'm broken gracefully. I'm strong when I am weak, I will be free. Your power at work in me, I'm broken gracefully. I'm strong when I am weak, I will be free. Here I am, God, arms wide open, pouring out my life, gracefully broken.
Hello, welcome welcome to the first part of our series, Lost and Found. Today we're going to talk about selfishness. You know, we all have these moments of selfishness in our lives, and selfishness is an okay thing, but sometimes it's a bad thing. It's okay when you need to get that time by yourself because the kids are all over the place and you just need that moment to resettle and recenter yourself. It's okay sometimes when you go through a difficult moment and you just need to get away, or when you just need to do something for yourself because you've been giving out and pouring out to so many people. But there's a dark side to selfishness too, when we are not considering other people, when we're not thinking about others and we're just thinking about ourselves. It's just about me, myself, and I. Well, we experienced this last year in our community at Mercy Hospital. If you can remember, there was a doctor there whose ex-boyfriend or ex-fiance came back to the hospital and killed her. Now, what was hard about this experience is that it didn't just affect her, it affected the entire community. His selfishness of wanting to be with her and to have her all for himself led him to a dark place where he ended up committing murder. But sometimes when we are in these dark places, we're not thinking clearly. We're not seeing what's happening on the other side. We're not worried about how what we do or what we say will impact other people. We're just concerned about ourselves. You know, there's this parable about the lost son that Jesus tells. And the son comes to his father, and when he comes to his father, he says to his father, you know what, I want my inheritance right now. I don't want to wait for it. I want it this moment, this instant. And I want to take it, and I want to go do something with it. You know, it's interesting because his selfishness doesn't take in consideration what it means for him to take his portion of wealth before his father dies out of the family. What does it do for the servants that rely on his father's wealth in order to survive and feed their families? What does it mean to his brother who is also sharing in the inheritance but is working with his father and taking care of the family business? And so all of these things are going on and they're happening. And what happens is he decides not only to take his inheritance, he decides to take it and cash it in. And when he cashes it in, he decides to move far away from everybody else. He moves to another place where he has no connection with his father, he has no connection with his family, he has no connection with his friends. He just leaves everybody. And what to me is very interesting about this story is that sometimes when we find ourselves in selfish places, we get to that place where we don't think about the consequences. We move away from everybody. We move away from those who care about us, who love us, those who will hold us accountable at times. So for him, he moves away, and when he gets to this place, he realizes that he can have all the fun he wants with no inhibitions. I mean, it would be great if we could go out and do whatever we wanted to do and not worry about anything. Well, for him, the story didn't turn out so well because he went out and he spent all that he had and he found that he had nothing left. And when he finally saw that he had nothing left, he began to realize that, you know what, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Maybe I should have thought this thing through. Now, I don't know about you, but there are times in my life when I have these moments where I just want something for myself. And in those moments and in those times, it's sometimes difficult for me to realize that there are other people on the other side of that. And the people on the other side of that have feelings, emotions, they have things that they want as well. But sometimes what we do as family, as friends, we sacrifice some of the things we want because we know how much our relationships mean with other people. And those relationships build, they help us to connect with people. They help us to connect with one another. And in those relationships, what we find most deeply is that there's a love that centers there. When this young man took his father's inheritance and lost it all, he didn't just lose the money, he lost the relationships that he had. He lost the connection that he had with his family, with his friends, with the place that he used to live in. And in that space, he found himself lost and wondering, you know, how did I get here? How did I get to this place? I think often about people who struggle with addiction. Because with addiction, sometimes we become so selfish that we can't see anything else. There was a man that I knew, Billy. Billy was a drug addict. And Billy's story was a great story because Billy was always in the community and always asking people for money and always looking for a handout. And he would come by the church when I was a young minister. And in the church, he would just come and just talk to us. And one day, he came to the church, and I didn't know he was there. And I heard this beautiful music playing in the sanctuary. The music just really captivated me. And I said, "Who's playing?" And nobody knew. And we walked to the doors, and we saw Billy at the piano. None of us knew that he had been a trained pianist. None of us knew that his story led him down a dark path and dark place where he separated himself from family, from friends, from everything that he knew. But finally, when we saw that moment, we saw something different in Billy. We saw the possibilities of what he could be. And we began pouring into Billy, and we began loving Billy and caring for Billy. And years later, Billy began to do concerts again. And he began to get to a place of healing and wholeness because, well, Billy had been broken. And in his brokenness, what he found was that there was a place for healing for him. And he found it in a sense of community with people who loved and cared for him. He found that he had run away so far that it was time for him to stop running, and it was time for him to let go of everything that was holding him back from making that move to improving his life, to getting back to the place where he needed to be, a place of health, a place of wholeness, a place of healing. For him to get to that place, what he had to do was let go of everything that he had held on to so that he could really experience the love that God had for him. This was the story of the son who took his inheritance and lost everything. After he had lost everything, he realized, sitting there amongst all the other people, that, you know what? I need to go back home. I need to go back to the place where people love me and they care for me. I need to go back to that place where I can be made whole again. And it may be difficult, but it's something that I'm going to have to do. It may be something that you have to do as well. It may be something that you're experiencing in your life where you need to get back to that place of healing, that place of wholeness. You need to get back into that moment where you say, you know what? There's some things that I've done wrong. I've been selfish. I've thought about myself and not thought about others. What was most gripping to me about what happened last year at Mercy Hospital is while the events were taking place in the hospital and the police were all around and the area was being sectioned off, there was a lady, Marilyn, who shared with me that her husband worked at the hospital. And she was doing everything she could to contact him to find out what was going on with him. Was he safe? Was he okay? And in that moment, what I saw was a selfless love that broke down anything you think about what people are like when they're just concerned about themselves. Nothing else mattered in that moment. But was her husband okay? God thinks about us like that. We can be as selfish as we want to be. We can go into these dark places, but there's a love that's there for us that God just says, you know what? I want to know if you're okay. I want to know that you're going to be all right. I want to walk with you. I want to hold on to you. I want to grip you and just love you. And I want you to know that you are loved. In the moment that the son realizes that, you know what? I made a mistake. He starts thinking about going to that place where he knows he's loved.
Withholding nothing, withholding nothing, withholding nothing, withholding nothing. I surrender all to you. Everything I give to you, withholding nothing, withholding nothing, withholding nothing, withholding nothing. I surrender all to you. Everything I give to you, withhold. withholding nothing, withholding nothing, withholding nothing, withholding nothing.
Sometimes we have to let go of everything we have to reclaim the things that matter most. Sometimes it's hard for us to do that, but it's necessary. You can be in the darkest place or you can be in the best of places, but there's space for you and a place for you here with Next Ministries. We want you to be able to feel free to ask your questions of why. Ask your questions, why is this happening? Who is God? Why do people gather together to worship God? Why do people care for one another? Why don't people care enough for one another? We want you to be able to ask these questions so you can get some of the answers that you need along the way. We want to be able to journey with you. And this journey for us begins September 15th at the National Teachers Academy at 55 West Cermak. We hope to see you there.